Welcome to the Invest for More Real Estate Podcast. My name is Mark Ferguson, and I am your host. I'm a house flipper. I flip 10 to 15 houses a year. I own 13 rental properties with a goal to buy 100 by 2023. I'm also a real estate agent. I've been licensed since '01. I run a team of 9. We sell close to 200 houses a year. So on this show, we like to interview house flippers, landlords, and the best real estate agents in the business. So stay tuned for some great shows. If you want more information on my rentals, on the numbers, how I buy properties, check out investformore.com. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Invest for More podcast. This is Mark Ferguson. I write and created Invest for More. And on our podcast, we like to talk about all things real estate related, investing in rental properties, fix and flips, being a real estate agent. And today I have an awesome guest, Jay Scott, who takes part in just about every aspect of real estate, it seems like. So I'm excited to have Jay. Jay, can I call you Jay, or do you want to be called Jay Scott?
Oh, no, please call me Jay.
All right, sounds good. Jay, if you don't know him, is a huge presence on Bigger Pockets, has his own website at 123flip.com, has written 2 great books, the book on flipping houses, which was an Amazon bestseller, and the book on estimating rehab costs. And these aren't free ebooks that you download. These are real physical books. I have bought both the books. Great reads. I suggest you read them if you have any interest in flipping at all. So I want to welcome Jay. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Glad to be here. Thanks for having me, Mark.
Oh yeah, thanks for coming. So first, I'd like to hear some history on how you got started flipping. I know that's your main business in real estate. And then what did you do before you started flipping houses?
Unfortunately, I don't have a very exciting story, but I'll give you a little bit of background. And so my wife and I met back in 2005, 2006. We were both in the tech industry in California. And when we decided to get married in 2008, we figured, hey, we were both working 80, 90, 100 hours a week. We wanted to start a family. So we decided we were going to quit our jobs. We were going to move back to the East Coast, a little bit closer to both of our families. And we're going to find something else to do. We were thinking about starting our own business. We were thinking about doing some passive real estate investing, so maybe buying apartment buildings or something like that. But we hadn't really decided what we were going to do yet. In May of 2008, moved back to the East Coast, settled in Atlanta, Georgia. And one day that summer, while we were trying to figure out what we were going to do with our lives, my wife was sitting on the couch and she was watching HGTV, as she did a lot back then, and she was watching a flipping show. And she looked up at me and she said, hey, let's flip a house. And I thought she was joking, but she was serious. She was like, we're not doing anything else this summer. We're trying to figure out what we want to do. We're getting married in a couple months. In the meantime, let's undertake a new fun project. Let's flip a house. Now, the interesting thing is, I am probably the least handy person you've ever met in your life. I can barely change a light bulb. And she knew this. What we both had going for us, neither of us had ever even purchased a house before. We had no real estate experience. I had no construction experience. She had very little knowledge about construction and renovation. But what we both had was we both had a lot of business experience. So I said to her, okay, we can give it a try, and I'm not going to be able to work on the house. I'm not going to be able to do any of the rehab stuff. But I figured, flipping houses can be treated like a business, so I'm going to approach it from a business standpoint and hire everything out and put together a good team. And about 6 months later, we bought our first property, and we bought 3 more within 2 months after that, and we just kept going from there. If you ask me, I'd say that's a pretty exciting story, considering you had no experience, you had no history, and you just jumped right into it. I didn't realize that you had done so much so quickly. Just a new challenge, and it was just something to do in the moment. I don't think when we first started that we ever considered that, hey, this could be a long-term business for us. It was just, this could be a fun project for the summer, And after we purchased the first one, we just happened to stumble across a couple more, and we're just like, okay, we'll do a couple more projects. But it wasn't until many months later that we came to the realization that, hey, this could be a long-term business venture for us.
I don't do any of the work on my flips or rental properties now. But one summer, I decided I was going to do an entire flip myself, and it was an older house, needed a ton of work, new kitchen, new doors, new windows, new flooring, new paint, and it was the worst mistake I ever made in my career. It took me 6 months. I lost money on the flip because it just took so long, and I had to bring other contractors in to make sure I did everything right, and I learned a lot. But, man, when you do things yourself and you're not a professional, it's usually not a good idea. So I think you started out the right way, just hiring people from the get-go. I've looked on your website, and you have details on the first 50 flips you did. That takes a lot of work to do that. How many flips have you done total now?
I don't know exactly how many we've done now, because the last couple years we've done lots of partnerships. I've done group deals. I've done deals where I've lent money. I've done deals where I've participated in different fashions. So I don't really know what to count as like my flip versus participating in somebody else's flip. But I estimate we're somewhere in the 150 to 200 deals total, all said and done.
Wow, that's awesome. That's very cool. And yeah, it sounds like you're going to talk about your website there before I asked you another question. So how much work was it to put together the numbers on 50 different flips?
I actually started the website a few months before we even decided to flip a house. Like I said, we were talking about moving to Atlanta, and we were considering investing in apartment buildings just for some passive income. And so I started my website probably right around the time we moved, May of 2008. And the goal was to basically give myself something to keep us accountable for our progress. So I started posting, tried to post every day. Actually, the goal was to create a website that would detail every last gory aspect of the stuff we were doing. So it followed us as we were creating our business plan, as we were picking the name of our company, as we were registering our business, as we were putting our team together. And when we bought our first deal, which ended up being the flip deal as opposed to an apartment deal, I decided I'm going to use this venue basically to just capture every detail of the project. So every day I would post pictures, I would post videos, I would post basically all the mistakes we made, the few successes we had at that point, and just basically use it as a way, one, to document everything we were doing, but also just to hold us accountable and make us continue to keep moving forward, not make the same mistakes twice. And what I found was people were reading it, and they loved the fact that I was happy to put out like all the gory financial details, every penny we were spending and every penny we were making. They liked to see all the mistakes we were making, because I guess it was helping people not make the same mistakes. And there were a lot of people that wanted to get into the business, and I think this was just an opportunity for them to kind of live vicariously through our projects. So at the start, I was probably spending a couple hours a day on the website. At some point, it kind of got easier and a little bit more automated. But yeah, for the first 50 flips that we did, I tracked basically every last detail, every financial detail down to the penny, pictures, videos, schedules, budgets. Before every project, I would post my estimated budget, and after every project, I'd post my final budget, and I could analyze where we were wrong, where we were right. So it just became a great tool for us to analyze our deals, but it also became a great learning tool for other people to read about what we were doing and hopefully not make the same mistakes we were making.
Wow, that's awesome. I think if everybody, not just posting online, but if they just wrote out their plan and their budget and were as detailed as that, it would be so much more successful at whatever they did than if it's flipping or running a business. Just having that detail had to be a huge benefit to you. And not only that, but if you ever had to look back and see something, it's right there online, easy to get to. It's just stored. That's great. Wow. I know I have my goal to purchase 100 rental properties, and by posting that online and putting it out there in the public, it motivates me so much more to get it done. And then it's been a great tool, and I imagine having the blog has done the same thing for you as well.
Yep, and I'm sure you've seen that if you go a couple days without posting, or if you don't have any new deals for a couple months, people start writing you and saying, "What's going on? Why aren't you doing deals?" And it really makes you think, I'm not just doing this for me anymore. I have people that are actually following my story, and they're gonna push me. So yeah, it's a great motivator and great way to hold yourself accountable.
Yeah, that's fantastic. You've been in Atlanta, and then I know you doing deals in Milwaukee as well, and you're doing things in Baltimore. So my first question is, when you started doing deals in other places, how did you keep things going in Atlanta without everything falling apart?
So, actually, right now, we moved to Maryland about a year ago. So I'm no longer physically located in Atlanta, even though we still do a bunch of deals there. But like I was saying earlier, I'm really bad at the construction side of this business. My wife is great at the design side, but she's not good at the construction side of the business that could handle the business for us. And one of the first, the first employee that we hired, and to this day the only employee we've hired, was a full-time project manager in Atlanta. And his job was basically to do all the day-to-day work on the flips. So he would put together the scopes of work. He would put together the budget. He would interview the contractors. He would hire the contractors, manage the contractors. He was the one that was ensuring things were getting done properly, on schedule, on budget. He was basically my right-hand man. And by having him in place, my wife and I could focus on the bigger stuff. We could focus on strategy. We could focus on raising money. We could focus on finding deals. And so when we decided to branch out and start investing in other places, so we went from Atlanta, we did about 20 properties in Milwaukee. And then we decided to move to Maryland, and so now we're doing stuff in Maryland as well. The reason we've been able to do that is because we kind of removed ourselves from the day-to-day aspects of the flips. We're still always available when there are issues, but for the most part, we have other aspects of the flips, and we focus on the larger pieces, the finding deals, the strategy, the raising money. So it's made easier by having people on the ground in the locations where we're doing the work that are focused on handling everything day to day.
That's great. I know when I first started in real estate, I tried to do a lot of different. I tried to help with flipping. I tried to sell houses. I just kind of got overwhelmed. But once I focused on one thing, I focused on selling real estate, to let everything go by the wayside for a little bit, and stayed on that track. Then I built that business up. It became successful, and then I hired help to kind of help that business keep going. And then I moved on to focus on some different aspects like flipping, like rental properties, and doing kind of things one step at a time, build it up, then maybe move on to something else. But you didn't just start all of this at once. It's been kind of an ongoing progression, I imagine.
Exactly. One step at a time, and as we scale, we have to add more infrastructure. And you're not starting off doing 20 houses at once. So when you first start, you don't really need that term. But as you go from one house at a time to two houses at a time to five houses at a time, you just slowly add that infrastructure, and you kind of grow naturally and organically. And at some point, you realize, okay, I'm getting overwhelmed, so I have to do either something different or add another person to help or more people to help. And every step of the way, it's just reassessing the business and figuring out, what do I need to get to the next level? Or maybe you're perfectly happy, and we've come to the point a couple of times where we've been happy at the level we've been, and we haven't wanted to scale any further. So we just keep doing what we're doing. So, but
right.
Yeah, it's a constant reassessment and figuring out what's working, what's not working, what needs to be changed.
Now, I have a question. I don't know if you know this. You know how many contractor crews that you work with in different areas? Do you have 5? Do you have 10? Or do you have in-house crews that you hire and manage yourself?
No. So we basically sub everything out. We don't generally use general contractors because, like I said, we have our project managers on the ground who basically play the role of general contractor. In some cases, we have contractors. For example, in Atlanta, we have our our paint crew, our electrician, our plumber, our HVAC guy. They'll do every deal that we do down there. Every project we have down there, they'll do. But then we have other people. So like we have several carpenters, some that are better for smaller trim type work, some that do anything from like finished trim to framing, large scale framing. So we'll have a couple different guys there. Depending on the type of project, we'll bring in the right person there. We have some contractors that can do small sheetrock jobs, and then we have contractors that can do larger sheetrock jobs. So it really depends on the trade. And I can't say we have 5 crews or 10 crews or 1 crew. It's more like we have basically 1 plumber that we tend to use in Atlanta. We have 1 electrician, 1 HVAC company. But then we have 3 or 4, and then we have 2 or 3 sheetrock companies. And then we have 2 cabinet suppliers. So it's kind of a matrixed set of contractors that will pick and choose on each particular project depending on the logistics of that project, the location of the project, the scale of the project, and what our budget might be.
Very cool. And on your first flip you did, how did you find the contractors, or did you use a general contractor on that one?
Wow, we made a lot of mistakes on the first flip. We had no idea what we were doing. What I ended up doing was I hired somebody that I thought was a general contractor. He was actually just a contractor who offered to do everything himself. And what I later learned was there's a big difference between a real general contractor, somebody who's going to bring in subcontractors to work under him and sub out the various pieces to experts, and what I'll call the lowercase GC, the guy who comes in and he does everything, but he does it himself, or he might bring in 1 or 2 helpers, but he's going to be the guy up on the roof, like fixing the roof, and then he's going to be the guy doing the electrical work, and then he's going to be the guy doing the plumbing work. And while that can often save you money, it will generally increase the schedule tremendously because you have 1 or 2 or 3 people trying to do the entire project as opposed to bringing in 6 or 8 or 10 different contractors to do different pieces. And it's also going to impact the quality of the project. Generally speaking, one person isn't going to be great at everything they do. So if he might be really good at carpentry, but if he's really good at carpentry, he may not be good at plumbing or electrical or sheetrock. So what I found is, and what happened on the first project was, we tried bringing in the generalist, the guy that could do everything, and bring in the help. But what we found is the project took a couple months longer than we expected, and we were over budget, and the quality was lower than we expected. So basically, we made every mistake in the book on the first project, and we like I said, from there you just have to reassess and figure out where the mistakes are and try not to make them again in the future.
Right. I think it worked out okay in the end after making those mistakes. One thing I found is interesting is when you moved into Baltimore, or I'm not sure if it's Baltimore, but Maryland, you bought a house, yep, completely tore it down and built a new one. Is that right?
We did.
What was that process like? How did you manage that, building a brand new house?
One of the things that we realized about 2 years ago was that the market was getting a lot tougher for flips. Back in 2008, 9, 10, we had more houses than we knew what to do with. If you went on the MLS, you could find 20 houses at a time that could be purchased and flipped for a good profit. So we could pick and choose the types of projects we wanted to do, the locations of those projects, the scale of those projects. Then around 2012, what we found was that the market was starting to improve. A lot of hedge funds were moving into Atlanta and buying up the cheap properties as rentals. And we were finding it a lot harder to find good flip deals. So at that point, I had another investor that I work with down there who said to me, hey, let's try a new construction project. While everybody and their brother was getting into flipping, and flipping deals were hard to find, there was a lot of good either tear-down possibilities or vacant land that could be built up from scratch. And so back in 2012, we decided, hey, let's try doing some new construction, building a spec house. And he brought a good bit of the construction knowledge. Again, I brought some of the business knowledge. And between us, we figured out how to build new construction. So by the time we got to Maryland last year and had decided to build our personal residence, we had already built a couple spec houses. So we knew the process. There was certainly some difficulties. Anytime you move to a new location, you're going to have new building codes. You're going to have different laws. Finding new contractors is going to be really tough. Figuring out how much things cost is going to be really tough. So I don't want to say building our own personal residence was easy, but by the time we got here and started that project, we already had a couple new construction projects built. So it wasn't that tough. And it was actually really nice because we knew exactly the type of house we wanted to buy. But my wife had always had this dream of basically designing a house on her own and basically being the designer for a new construction project that we could live in. So ultimately, she sketched out a house on the back of a napkin and iterated on it about 700 times, and we handed it to an engineer and an architect to actually draw it up, and ultimately we built the house that my wife designed from scratch. So it's great. We're thrilled, and we finished it just I guess last Thanksgiving, and so I've been here a couple months now.
Wow, that's awesome. When I was a kid, I'd always make my parents buy me graph paper because I would always draw floor plans on houses and design houses, and I still have a bunch of them. But that's one thing I'd always like to do. At some point in my life, too, is design my own house from scratch, but haven't gotten to that point yet. But that's really cool. I bet that's just a fantastic house to live in now, knowing you guys designed it. You've been very successful flipping. You've done great with partnering. You're doing new construction. And then now it sounds like you're trying to get into rental properties. So how has that been going?
Yeah, right around the time we realized that there weren't a lot of flip deals out there anymore, not as many as we wanted, and we got into new construction, I just kind of had this revelation, and I have to give my partner, his name's Todd Whidden in Atlanta, a bunch of credit for this because he's always been really, really good at this. I had spent many years kind of just looking for flip houses. And that's all we wanted to do. There were more than we knew what to do with, so basically every deal was a flip. But once the flip deals started to dry up, what I quickly came to realize, and with help from Todd, was that in this business, there's a lot of value in being opportunistic. So deals come around every day, and you have to learn to start looking for them. So if you're only looking for flip deals, you're not going to see the other great deals that come across your desk. And so a couple of years ago, when we started building new construction, I also started to think about the other types of deals we could potentially be doing. And once I started looking for other different types of deals, what I found was there are still plenty of deals out there. I talk to a lot of people who say, I just can't find a deal. And what I'll tell them is you're probably looking too hard for one specific type of deal. Keep your mind open and just see what's out there and turn things that typically wouldn't be a deal for you because of what you typically do into something that can be a deal. So to get back to your question, rental properties is a great example of that. A couple of years ago, we weren't even considering buying rental properties just because it just wasn't what we were doing. But now I'm seeing some good rental deals come across my desk, and instead of rolling them out like I would have a couple of years ago, I'm saying, well, I have the resources and we have the time. Maybe these are the best deals out there right now. Maybe this is what we should be doing instead of flipping houses. So in addition to doing the flips, we're doing rentals, we're doing wholesale deals, we're doing wholesale deals, we're looking for apartment buildings, we're still doing the flips, we're still doing some new construction. But basically, instead of saying we just flip houses now, we kind of take the attitude that we're more opportunistic and we're going to do whatever deals are out there at the time where we're looking. I wouldn't say that we're focused on rentals right now, but we're not opposed to rentals. We're open to doing rentals. We're open to doing apartment buildings. We're open to doing multifamily. We're open to doing commercial. So these days, it's kind of we're doing a lot of different stuff. In some cases, we're partnering with people who know those niches better than we do. In some cases, we're trying to learn those niches ourselves. So yeah, we just kind of open our minds up a little bit and are open to doing a lot of different things these days.
Very cool. So now, when you are considering rentals, are you just looking in the Maryland area, or are you looking at different areas too, or are you just focusing kind of the ones that are close to you?
So I'm a big believer of economies of scale, and owning one or two rental properties in a place far away from where I live just doesn't seem very enticing to me. I think having a property manager to manage one or two properties far away that I can't be there myself to deal with the rehabs and to deal with the tenant placement, that doesn't really interest me. So I would certainly consider long distance investing in rentals. We haven't done it yet, but it would have to be something at a larger scale than one or two. So we're looking at apartment buildings. Right now we're negotiating a 20 unit in Atlanta, which is great because it's 20 units. It's not just one or two. So I'm more comfortable being long distance for that. So we're not really on a small scale looking at long distance rentals. But if anything comes up that gives us the opportunity to kind of scale up and get the economies of scale in a long distance location, we're certainly not opposed to that.
What's your plan with the rentals? Are you planning just to hold on to them for retirement money, or are you trying to, take a multi-unit property, maybe raise the rents, increase its value and turn that, or is it just kind of a short, middle-term hold and see what happens in 5 or 10 years?
So for the single-family houses, it's definitely long-term. So basically, whether that be, we have 2 young kids now, so whether that be holding them for 15 years until they're in college or holding them for 25 years until we're retired, I don't know, but definitely at least 10, 15, 20-year time horizon. In terms of the larger multis, like the 20 unit that we're looking at in Atlanta, that's more of a midterm play for us. So we love the idea of buying something distressed. We know how to rehab stuff. Again, we know the business side, so we know how to put good management in place. So being able to buy a really distressed apartment building and fix it up, put in better management, raise the rents to market, and then resell it in 3, 5, or 7 years, that's kind of the play that I'm interested in. At some point, we might be interested in holding one of those for long-term cash flow, but I still kind of like the flipping aspect of real estate. So flipping the larger apartment buildings over a couple of years is actually really interesting to me.
I own one duplex, an up-down duplex, but I've never owned a multifamily besides that. And there's one that came up for sale about a month ago that I was very interested in. It was a really good price. And then we got inside the property, and it was just a complete dump. And that ruined it for me. And then I saw today it sold for like $100,000 over asking price. And I was just like, oh, my.
Wow.
I couldn't believe it. Yeah, and it was our cap rates in Colorado are usually 5 to 7%, and that's one reason why I invest in single family rentals, because it's so hard to make any money with those cap rates. It must be a lot of cash in the area or something that pushed those up. So yeah,
that's crazy.
Yeah, and this one was it ended up selling for $925. And it was, I have to get the details, but I think it rented for about, I'd have to double check. It was like $7,000 a month, $8,000 a month. And it was not in good shape at all. It was really bad shape. There were squirrels looking at me through the soffits and the roof. So I knew that was a bad sign. One of the biggest hurdles many people have when they want to get started flipping or buying rental properties is coming up with the money, coming up with the financing, not just buy one. Many people can get into their first one, but then buying the second one, the third one, or like you've done, having multiple properties going at one time. So how have you financed your first one and then developed a strategy to finance multiple properties?
Yep, that's a great question. And let me start with I'm a really big proponent of recommending that people figure out their financing strategy before they start looking for deals. I know a lot of people who take the attitude, if I find a great deal, the money will come. And while that's often the case, there's a lot of stress with having a deal under contract and not knowing how you're going to pay for it. And especially when you're new in this business, there's a whole lot of stuff you need to be doing once you get a deal under contract. The last thing you need to be worried about is where the money's coming from. So quick thought for everybody is just get your financing in order before you start looking for the deals. Now, that said, what are some financing options? How did I start? I've used pretty much every type of financing there is out there. On my first several deals, the first one, I paid cash. I was lucky enough to be in a position where I had some extra cash, and I could pay for the first one, purchase some rehab, just using our own funds. The second deal we ever purchased, I went and I got a conventional bank loan. So just like if I were buying a rental property, I think in retrospect, the banker that I worked with, I think she thought this was a rental property. I don't think she realized that this was a flip. And I know that when I paid the loan off about 3 months later, and I called her to get another one, she wasn't really happy. So what I found is you can use conventional lending for flips, but banks generally don't like it very much. When they make an investment loan, they typically expect that the loan's going to be out there for several years. So I would suggest talking to your banker before you try and use a conventional loan for a rehab. The other issue that we found was with a conventional loan, the bank is going to expect the house to be in pretty pristine shape, at least move-in ready. And I remember with that first deal that we did with a conventional bank loan, the water heater didn't work, and we actually couldn't get the loan approved until the water heater was fixed. So the problem there, obviously, is the seller, who in this case was a bank, they didn't want to fix the water heater. And me as the buyer, I didn't want to go in and fix a water heater before I owned the property, because if for some reason the deal didn't go through, I just fixed a water heater for a property I didn't own. So with a typical flip property, there are going to be a lot of problems where a bank's not going to be happy about lending money. So I've gotten away with using conventional loans for flips. Don't recommend them anymore. My third deal, I used what's called a portfolio loan. Real small local bank. Generally, they have 2 or 3 branches in the area, and they're small enough that they give loans that don't necessarily have to conform to government standards. They're not FHA loans. They're not Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac conventional loans. They basically give loans that they make their own rules. And if they want to lend to real estate investors, they can. If they want to lend to flippers, they can. And these are, if you can find a bank in your area that does portfolio loans and is accustomed to working with flippers, that to me is the best financing out there. Generally, you'll pay a little bit higher rates than a conventional loan. These days, probably 5.5%. The loans are generally 6 to 12 months, interest only. You have to put 20 to 30% down, but portfolio loans are kind of my preferred lending suggestion to anybody getting into this business. Now, if you can't qualify, if you don't have the cash and you can't qualify for any type of loan, there are other options. So I think my fourth deal, I borrowed money from a private lender. And it was a friend of a friend's father who had a whole bunch of money sitting in his retirement account. And I basically said to him, I'll give you 12% interest on the money. And I think at that point, this is when the stock market was like down around 6,000 or 7,000. And he was basically losing money every day on his retirement funds. I offered him 12%. He was thrilled. So that was my first foray into private money. And since then, I've used a lot of private money, people lending their personal funds, people lending from their retirement accounts. And then the other thing that I highly recommend to new investors is find a partner. So it can be a strictly financial partner, somebody that doesn't want to actually be involved in the deal but has cash. Or it could be another investor who has the cash but doesn't have as many deals as he's looking for. You bring the deal, he brings the cash, and then you rehab it together. So, and I think that's what I did on my fifth deal. So basically my first 5 deals, 5 different types of financing: cash, conventional loan, portfolio loan, private lender, and partner. And since those first 5, I've kind of used all those strategies over and over and over again. There's also hard money lenders. So for those that basically they don't have the great credit and they don't have great income, but they have a great deal, hard money is a great way to go. You're going to pay higher rates, and so certainly it's going to eat into your profit a little bit. But the nice thing about hard money is generally you're borrowing money from somebody that knows real estate, and they're not going to lend you the money if they don't think it's a good enough deal. So it's just another set of eyes on your deal that's basically telling you, hey, this is good enough that you should be doing it, or it's not good enough and maybe you should reconsider. So I think that's 6 good choices for financing, and everybody just has to decide what's right for them, what they have access to. But from what I found, if you really want to get into this business, there's a way to get financing for your properties. And it may involve hard work, it may involve building relationships, but it's certainly possible.
I've used a partner. My dad, I've worked with him in the beginning, and as a partner with him, I've used private money. My sister's actually lent me some money. And then, my main financing myself is a portfolio lender. It's just so nice to have a bank that will not sell your loans. So like you said, they have better guidelines. They'll lend on flips. They will, like you said, you can probably get conventional on a loan on a flip once. And they're going to realize,
exactly.
We're not going to give you any more loans if you're just going to sell it in 3 months. So, but finding financing and a lender is so important in the beginning. And if you can't qualify, if you can't find the money, there's usually a partner out there if you look hard enough to find one. Great information. Very cool. Do you have any specific goals or anything that you are really looking to accomplish in the next couple of years? Or are you just kind of going with the flow, looking for different opportunities and whatever comes your way?
Yeah, so we don't have any specific long-term goals right now. Like I said, we moved to Maryland about a year ago. That was specifically just a family decision. The kids were getting ready to go into school, and so Maryland is where I grew up. So get a little bit closer to my family, get closer to the better schools. They have some really good schools in the area. So we decided to move up here kind of on a whim. And when we got up here, we realized that the market could be different up here than it is in Atlanta or Milwaukee, where we've done some deals. And so instead of moving up here and taking the attitude, this is where we expect to be in the next few years, we decided we'd just, again, be opportunistic and just see kind of where things took us. And what we found since we've gotten up here is we're not doing a lot of flip deals up here. We're still doing a bunch of flip deals in Atlanta. But up here, we're doing a whole bunch of wholesale deals. We're doing some rental properties, and we see some opportunity. We're negotiating some land for new construction and hopefully building a subdivision pretty soon. So I don't know where the market's going to be going in the next year or 2 or 5 years. So it's really hard. And what we found is if we say this is where we want to be in 5 years and the market doesn't let us get there, sometimes we find ourselves being a little bit too rigid on what we want to do. So we're just kind of taking the attitude, we're going to sit back and we're going to just see what opportunities come our way and kind of go with the flow, as you said, and see where we end up. And we're still doing a lot of deals, but we're not focused on any particular kind of deal. We're just seeing what comes along and what falls into our lap.
Now, you mentioned wholesaling. I did my very first wholesale deal this year. I'd never done it before, but I had a flip that was 45 miles away from me. My contractors didn't want to go there. I didn't really want to go there. I stuck it for sale by owner sign up, and someone came along and bought it for $15,000 more than I paid for it. I was ecstatic. So when you're wholesaling, are you wholesaling off MLS, or are you doing direct marketing? How are you finding those deals?
It's probably not accurate to say that I'm doing wholesaling. I'm actually doing more what I would call wholetailing, and that's not a phrase that I came up with. Somebody else coined that phrase, but it basically means buying a distressed property, doing a very minimal amount of work, and then reselling it to another investor who will then rehab it and flip it or rehab it and rent it. And so what we found is we've seen several opportunities in the past year of houses that we've gotten that had a single major problem. So we've bought 3 hoarder houses. Literally, the people that lived there were hoarders and just stuff stacked floor to ceiling. We found a house that had a major sewer problem. And then we found another house that had a major basement problem. And for each of those 5 deals, basically what we did is we went in, we solved the big problem. In the case of the hoarder houses, we basically just cleaned the houses out and wiped them down. The house with the sewer issue, we fixed the sewer issue, and the house with the basement issue, we just did some basement work. And we basically got the houses in a good enough condition that a lot of investors would be very interested. So when you see a hoarder house, it turns a lot of people off. When you see a house with basement issues, it turns a lot of investors off. But if you can fix that big, like, in-your-face issue, suddenly you have a house that lots of investors will clamor over and fight for. So what we've done on several deals now is we'll buy those houses, we'll do literally 1 to 3 days worth of work, and then we'll turn around and we'll list it on the MLS and find another investor, or in even a couple of cases, homeowners who are willing to pay to take on that project. So we've done a lot of that. Most of the deals we've found here in Maryland have actually come from other wholesalers. So they're wholesalers who find these houses, and I'm not scared to take them on, whereas other investors may be scared to take on the sewer issues or the basement issues. And so they come to us first, and so we do the little bit of fix-up, and we turn around and we remarket them to other investors.
Very nice. So are you doing just enough work to get them to qualify for financing, or are you just fixing one major issue and they still might not qualify for financing, but they look a lot better?
Generally the second. These houses still typically won't qualify for financing, so we're still looking for an investor to come in with cash. So in the case of the hoarder houses, they still need a full cosmetic renovation. They still need appliances to be replaced. They might have some plumbing and some electrical issues, but at least you have all the stuff out of there so you can see the walls and you can see the floor, and somebody can go in and can evaluate the issue. And like I said, we've had a couple of homeowners that have come in and bought houses, and they've paid cash, so they weren't able to get financing, but we got the houses in a good enough shape where they weren't scared to buy them at that point. So the house with the basement issues was a perfect example. There was a homeowner who came in and he had cash. He was looking to buy something. He never would take on a project that had severe basement water issues. But we had already fixed that issue. So at that point, it became just a major cosmetic renovation. That wasn't something he was scared of. So he was happy to pay cash, and he moved in, and I assume he's fixing it up as he's living there.
This has been a great call, full of information. I really appreciate all your insights on financing, on flipping, on your plans for rental properties, and wholetailing, which I had heard that term one other time before, but I never researched it to see exactly what it meant. But that makes sense now. I like that. So if people want to get in touch with you, if they want to make contact with you, is your website the best place to go?
So www.123flip.com is a great way to get in touch with me. And my email is on there, and so I can be contacted that way. You can look me up on Facebook, 123flip Real Estate, or Twitter, 123flip. And I'm always on Bigger Pockets, so feel free to hit me up there as well.
Yep. I see you on Bigger Pockets all the time. I know you're never shy to share information and help other people. Really, you're a great resource on Bigger Pockets and with your website. I know you've taught a lot of people over the years how to avoid those mistakes you made, which is a great resource. Well, great. I want to thank you a ton for taking your time out to do the podcast, to share your information. Great luck to you in the future. Any new books coming out, or are you just sticking to those 2 first ones for now?
I do have one that's hopefully coming out in the next few months. Don't have a title yet, and I'm not yet ready to disclose the topic, but I think it'll appeal to a lot of investors in a lot of different areas. So I'm looking forward to that. So give me a couple more months on that one.
All right, very cool. Excited to see what that one's going to be about. All right, very cool. J. Scott, thank you very much. Good luck in the future, and have a great weekend. All right,
I appreciate it. Thanks, Mark. And this was a lot of fun. Thanks.
All right. Yep. Thank you.